All right. We know that you are also traveling across the United States and you are having town hall meetings with several people. Who are the people coming to the town hall meetings and what are you telling them?
Well, the town hall meetings are being held with the diaspora population, the U.S. diaspora of the Lower Niger. If you focus a little here, for the purpose of illustration and expression, this is Nigeria in along its natural fault lines, and the part here, which we call they now call the South and Southeast geopolitical zone, for the purpose of what we are doing now. I'm sure you saw the Asari video in which he was talking about the futility of going for Niger Delta Republic or the Biafra that looks like an Igbo, and he says unless the peoples of the territory find some way to integrate themselves into one block to look for answers to the many questions hanging over them, it will be journey to nowhere. And so the organization I am secretary to is called the Lower Niger Congress. The territory, the Lower Niger, is the combination of this old Midwestern region and the old Eastern region. And if you take a zoom, you will see the map we have here. That's just the territory, that combination of the two. But the difference here is that we're not inviting them as people from River State or Abia State or Edo State. We're inviting them as Ijo, Igbo, Anang, Efik, Ishekiri, as you see in the map here. And what we're telling them is, look, that the constitution of Nigeria is heading irreversibly to a major reconstruction. And that if we go back to this map, that the 12 states that, let's use this, that the 12 contiguous states here that passed Sharia almost simultaneously in year 2000, our contention is that they had seceded from the secular union we thought we were building with them. And at the time the constitution of Nigeria is being disputed as a fraud. You remember we went to court in 2007. At the time we had done pro-NACO to create a new consensus. We went to try to we went to court to set in motion a process by which that fraudulent constitution will be eased out, like the apartheid constitution was eased out in 1990 to 94 from South Africa. And what the situation represented is that if in the midst of that kind of a debate, 12 contiguous states simultaneously impose Sharia, which is expressly forbidden by the constitution, we thought we had to rework in some way. Our joint contention is that, and when I say our here, I mean the contention of the rest of the country, is that these 12 states had seceded from that point from the Union. And we didn't want to keep the constitution that was already being disputed everywhere as the basis of the balance of the Union. And so in 2011, we had under the aegis of the Movement for New Nigeria, which I also happen to be co-convener. What is Movement for New Nigeria? The cooperation platform of these three blocks, the Lower Niger, the Middle Belt, and the Yoruba Southwest, just to take care of the rest of Nigeria, so that we don't, in running away from Nigeria, become Somalia. We began to talk amongst ourselves to say in which formations are we willing to carry on post-Nigeria, because the Nigeria that our fathers negotiated in Lancaster House 1959 collapsed in 1966. The Federation of Nigeria died in 1966, but the country was still there. And the rogue federal government emerged that has kept the union by force and refusing to discuss any return to the being a federation. And so it's been a union of death, a union of attrition, a union of backwardness for the rest of the country. And when we had called a meeting of the owners of the country, that is the nationalities that are cobbled here by the British experiments of 1914, we called a meeting of all, which was what came out as Pronaco 2005 to 6, to say what agreement can we reach, because the constitution is simply the agreement by which the union is floated. And we came out with a draft that would have taken us back to being a federation. But suddenly, instead of working together to ease out that constitution that is being disputed from all sides, elements from this, this upper part, this Sharia, these people that are embrace Sharia, bluntly refused to come along in anything that could, give life to that new consensus. And we progressively found ourselves drifting apart, in which they insisted on keeping the 1999 constitution that the rest of the people were rejecting. And progressively too, we said, if that constitution is no longer, acceptable to us in this manner, and there's this minority, and we have taken the trouble to work out what could replace it, and we could have gone into a process that will, in an orderly form, ease out one and bring in the other, subject to whatever, there will be referendums to validate and all of that. But they just simply said that the matter was non-negotiable, that all the terms as they imposed by that existing constitution. We said, okay, in that case, the rights, we know that that constitution, since we went to court to say that we did not make it, because the life of that 1999 constitution is actually the claim that we made it. And who are the we here? The constituent nationalities. We the Ogoni, we the Anang, we the Efik, we the Bibio, we the Yoruba, we the Doma, all these people being killed now. The claim is that we enacted our damnation. We didn't, and we went to court, and I'm a lawyer of many years, 26 precisely. Any document that turns out to be a forgery dies on the spot of being discovered to be a forgery. Like a check the owner of the account didn't sign, you get there, and it turns out he didn't sign it. There's no ceremony about any benefit that such a document confers, maybe title document, collapses right there. And that is the kind of life, that's the kind of validation that have been carrying Nigeria in this. It is our forged signature that has given life to this constitution that empowers people to go from Sokoto and Daura to go and kill people in Port Harcourt, to go and kill people in Ife, to go and kill people in Kogi and Southern Kaduna. It is that same forged signature that empowers them to sell 3 million barrels of crude oil in the name of all of us, because the oil and gas assets of the Niger Delta have now become the property of that Nigeria that is disputed. There's Nigeria that died, the Federation of Nigeria. The Nigeria, the one they call One Nigeria, that emerged in 1970, is the one we are rejecting, the unitary Nigeria, defined by this constitution of 1999. And what we then did was to look around to say, what are the remedies available to us other than war? We've gone to war. There have been a war in Nigeria that consumed more than 3.5 million people from this part of the country. Back to why we're talking to our people now. We have come to where that unitary Nigeria of necessity must be wound up, because it has become now more a union of death than anything else. And in winding it up, we have done all the processes to bring about the constitutions that will emerge. I'm sure you heard when the Yoruba did their solemn assembly, and they are now drafting referendum bill of what they will do with their future, because the union that they thought they were building had collapsed, and they have to now mind the Yoruba space, and that's the business of the Movement for New Nigeria, to take down that unitary constitution that is doing nobody no good. It's on account of that constitution we don't have electricity, we don't have any infrastructure at all, and we have seen corruption. That constitution creates massive avenues for corruption and comprehensively protects the beneficiaries of corruption. And if you thought it was going to get any better, as long as that constitution is in place, Nigeria will operate as the criminal enterprise it was designed to be by 1914, and things can only get worse. And we were talking about the economy that was collapsing. Now it is death upon death with no hope for when it will abate. And so we had to step up in what we could begin to do to take charge to recover our sovereignty that had been detained by that constitution. The sovereignty of the Yoruba, the sovereignty of the eastern part, the sovereignty of the middle belt. which have been lumped together into a suzerainty controlled by this caliphate. The same way the British suppressed our sovereignties before they just stepped into the shoes of the British. That's that's our experience. And the people who are coming to these town halls are the ones we're trying to explain to that the Federation of Nigeria, which died a long time ago, is about to be buried, and that new successor states are already emerging, but that it will go through due process that will end in referendums for each of the parts. And in the days to come, when the monster has been gotten out of the way, these three already have an understanding of how they continue to relate. There's no quarrel between them. Everybody here holds, in these 3 blocks, hold life sacrosanct, and all of us believe that all men are born equal. This part does not think that life matters, and they actually owe it a duty of faith to kill the rest of us they call infidel. And that problem will never go away. That's part of why we're not considering, we don't see any future of being in that union in which we will have to be killed because somebody owes it a duty of faith to his own to his own faith to kill the rest of us. So that's one ground. The other ground is that these same people who embrace that strange civilization are also of a feudalist worldview, and in their world there's only the master and the slave. And when the rest of us are talking about democracy and constitutionalism and rule of law, we're actually offending them in their own civilization of all men are not born equal. So when you put the two together, the same people who are embracing Sharia are the ones who believe that all men are not born equal. We are the receiving end, and we'll be idiots to continue to pretend that it's not so when killings are all over the place. And you send out your vice president to come to tell people who are contributing money daily to bail out people who have been kidnapped, to respond to the killings that are going on all over. Are they not the ones who are being killed? Do they not have relations who are aware that these killings are taking place? Did they blindfold everybody not to see the number of killings taking place? And so we are telling them, we are trying to prepare them, we are trying to get them ready, because some of them are stuck with Nigeria as if because they were told that to keep Nigeria one is a task that must be performed. To what purpose? If we cannot find common ground, we've been waiting since 1967 after Aburi to discuss whether we could revive our union that died in 1966. The people say they can no longer be discussed. And so, having waited for 52 years, we felt we needed to look for some other remedy. And luckily for us, there's a United Nations instrument that entitles us as nationalities in our ancestral spaces to what they call the right to self-determination. All of what we're doing now is in preparation to exercising that right to determine for ourselves how we live in our spaces. And so the town halls are being held with people from all these nationalities that are in this lower Niger. You see the Igbo, you see the Jod, you see the Anak, you see the Efik, and all of them, because that's the requirement for being qualified to exercise the right to self-determination. You must be Scot in Scotland, you must be Catalan in Catalonia, you must be Ijaw in Ijaw-land, you must be Ogoni in Ogoniland. What the Lower Niger Congress has done is to go, it took us 6 years of going around to all those nationalities in that region to say, these are the things we are all stuck with, these are the things we can do, and we're able to do it together. And the answer was an overwhelming yes that came from the solemn assembly of the peoples of the Lower Niger, 27th April 2015 in Port Harcourt. And we decided in that solemn assembly we mandated the distillation of a charter of relationships that will become the basis of the constitution that will emerge from there. What we do with our neighbors to the left and to the north in terms of the Yoruba, and it's just like the European Union that has Germany and France and Portugal in the European Union. But the sovereignty of these territories that have been detained since 1966 by this rogue federal government that emerged. You can't have a federal government without a federation. We have a unitary state. Why do we have a federal government that's omnipotent, able to go everywhere and do everything, the owner of everybody's resources, and with a 68-item exclusive list that makes it impossible for me to generate electricity for myself, to tar my road, to build my systems. because I have to wait for whoever is in charge of that federal government. And you can see the representation in Abuja. They've created 36 states out of 4 regions that federated. Those 4 regions that collapsed by the interventions of 1966, one had become 19 states for the Federal Capital Territory. The other 3 put together had yielded only 17 states. And when you think of when you consider the implications for either revenue sharing or opportunities that are made available on account of quota system, everybody that has to, you discover that the ones who are imposing themselves on the rest of us, who have now seized all the guns in the land, are not willing to listen to anything that will return us to being a federation. Should we stay and die all? Our answer is no. Therefore, we fall back on the remedy available to us within that United Nations instrument that came in 2007, which entitles us to be in our small spaces by ourselves. But we say we don't want to. We can do it together and be what you have with the economy of skills. We could be in this lower Niger. It could be a country of 70 million people. Of course, we know all of what went wrong in the Biafra that came by accident. There was, you couldn't say there was time to consult so that everybody could be on the same page in that pursuit. All of that we have corrected. We said, if we must be a federation, it must be federating units, creating the center, and delegating what they want the center to do for them. As originally agreed, it was 15% you were supposed to give, but you are the one giving. But now it is the center that is the owner of everybody. It must come to an end. That constitution must go down. Whatever anybody is saying, that constitution must go down. And the demise of that constitution is the demise of the unitary Nigeria. Anybody who doesn't yet understand that is going to learn the hard way. And we are not anarchists. We are prepared to allow those in government house, the elected, the existing governance structure can be, tolerated for whatever limited period the transition has to take. Like South Africa had to do with apartheid at the time they wound it up. It started by accepting that the society could no longer be resting on the basis of apartheid, of master and servant kind of constitution. The president that had to take that decision was Frederick de Klerk. He was elected under that constitution, but he saw that the society was collapsing, like Nigeria is collapsing today. And he was courageous enough to say that we will have to find an alternative to this apartheid. It wasn't by amendment, because some semi-literate professors of law will be talking about it's not the business for National Assembly. The legislative mandate of the National Assembly does not include constitution making. For those who are thinking that it is a subject for what National Assembly will come to do, let those people perish their thought.